I'm Zoe Miguel. I'm the CEO and founder of Bright Futures Autism and Early Intervention. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been working with young children with autism and their families for over 20 years. These questions were a follow-up from a video that I put together last Wednesday on how to get ready for returning to in-person learning. With all of these Q&As, what I'm doing is that I will answer the question, and then I will put in the description section below sort of the legal backup. Whenever I'm sharing something, it's really not my opinion, right? It comes from information that I have gathered, and I want to make sure that you go to those resources so you begin to be able to answer those questions for yourself. I'm not a lawyer. I just read all this stuff in my spare time. So in the description center below, or in the description area below, I will always put the referral to the actual uh, place in IDEA, right? We could actually go and see where your right is. The thing that was asked about today had to do with, did the school have to tell me that they were going to change services or reduce services for my child? And if I didn't get a service that was on the IEP, did they need to put that in writing, or should I have put that in writing? Every time that the school changes something, adds something, takes something away, any changes intervention strategies, changes a goal, anything like that, they have to give you prior written notice. Okay, so they have to document in black and white, propose what they're going to do. You get to accept it or reject it. And then you have to say why, or if you propose something, they have to say why they've accepted it and rejected it, right? It's the end of, if you go in, I did a video about sort of negotiating IEPs, how to get the most out of it. I suggest that you go listen to that. And at the end, it'll talk about prior written notice and how important that is. So over this past year, prior written notice got extremely important because the school is still required to provide FAPE. They cannot unilaterally, so without your consent, just say, oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to provide that, or we're not going to provide that, or this is how we're going to provide it, which in many cases is how it happened. So, for example, here in Santa Fe, in the Santa Fe School District, they put out what's called an individualized continuous learning plan. Sometimes that was put together by the IEP team. Sometimes it was put together by the parent and the special education teacher. Sometimes it was just mailed to the family saying, this is what the new plan is going to be. What parents weren't always aware of was that that individualized continuous learning plan was a prior written notice of proposed action. So that was the school's way of saying, here's what we propose for this interim, right? For this time while everything's online, this is what we propose to provide your child a free and appropriate public education. It wasn't always presented like that as something that a parent could say, yeah, no, that doesn't work, I disagree with that, or that it was even really a formal IEP process. And so parents are now kind of going like, whoa, what happened, right? So what I would say is, to answer the question, is that yes, the school should have given you written notice of what those changes were going to be. If, for example, they said OT services were going to be provided at one time a week, and that OT never followed up with you, or those services never happened, they, one, were out of compliance with the IEP, right? Even if it was in the continuous learning plan. And two, those services are now need to be provided through compensatory services. So everything should have been documented. If it wasn't, one of the things that is going to sort of come back on you as parents is you're going to have to figure out what was documented and what wasn't. So again, go back to the IEP, go back to that individualized continuous learning plan, or whatever documentation was put in place in terms of how services would be provided over the time that school was put online. And make note of what was provided, what wasn't, what you agreed to, what you didn't, and what was actually put in black and white. If it wasn't put in black and white, then that's where you need to write out like what services you actually were provided over the past year, and what services you weren't. If by chance you just went into a brain fog over the past year, which many of us did, you can ask the school for records of what services were provided and what weren't. I recommend that you do that, because obviously people are getting paid, and so they have to turn in their notes of what happened during that session. And my guess is that it'll just be a good thing for parents to have that. So again, you can request that documentation, and you can just say like, and probably genuinely, I have no idea how many hours of speech and language therapy my child received. I have no idea how much OT my child received. I don't even know, like specialized instruction. I don't even know. Was that when the teacher dropped off the packet of things that I was supposed to do with my child? Is that considered specialized instruction? So I think that there's a lot of things that need to be clarified, because many times this prior written notice was not followed, right? So there wasn't any kind of written agreement that said, we are proposing this, right? So the school says, this is what we're proposing. The parent accepts or rejects it, right? And then you move from there. You say why, right? We as an IEP team, which includes the parent, the anybody the parent wants there at the meeting, an administrator who can make decisions about resources, a special education teacher, a general education teacher. Sometimes those are dual role, but oftentimes they're different people. Service providers, right, need to be there at that IEP team to talk about any evaluations or any goals, recommendations. So there's a whole group of people that should have been at that IEP or that team meeting to discuss what services would be provided, what services weren't, and what the logic was behind that. So schools have to provide you written notice. You can ask for any documentation that services provided over the past year, to make sure that, again, all the services, that there's a record of all the services that were provided, weren't provided, because all of that is going to influence when you come back to the table and start talking about what services are going to be needed to be provided for the rest of this year, throughout the summer, and into next year. Again, it is the school's responsibility to provide communication, written communication about what services are going to be provided. And especially over this past year, there's a lot of things that just got glossed over, and a lot of assumptions were made, and things that were done that just are kind of iffy. And so as a parent, you need to know that you have a right to get documentation to be able to review all those things, and have the information you need to be an active participant in designing the program that your child is going to receive at school, to be able to access that educational environment. And it's going to be an interesting couple of years, probably, really, to get kids back on track. So make sure when you go to your IEP team meetings, one, that you remind yourself as you're walking in that door that you have a voice, that you have a place on that team, that you know your child best, and they all have to listen to you. And also take somebody with you so you don't have to go by yourself. I hope that helps. Again, I will include a link below with some additional information that you can read, like what's the letter of the law in terms of IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, right? What does the law say about this? Do you have a right as a parent to be given a heads up if services are going to change or goals are going to change, or was the school just allowed to do whatever over the past year? And the answer is they weren't. And so there are going to be more information down in the description below. Please like and subscribe if this information is helpful. If you want to help support some of the work that I'm doing, please go to Patreon. It's Patreon/Autism and Early Intervention. You can follow me on Facebook. All of the links are located below. Please like and subscribe to this channel to offer your support. It's much appreciated. Be well and take care.